are the ones selling tickets to the customers, we contract all the transportation services and actually provide a complete network. So the network includes metro, it includes tram, it includes, of course, a lot of buses. It also includes boats on the fjords, and we also have an agreement with the railway, which is managed nationally, but we still have an agreement where our tickets are the ones that are valid within our geography. So basically anything that's currently not underwater or in the air, that is part of the network. We currently also are looking into, and we'll get back to that, how we better can work together with both the city bike system as well as electric scooters and other players. We're actually the city of Oslo and was called the municipality of Akershus. So we're jointly owned by those two. There's been some restructuring on the regions in Norway on a political level, so now the political region has become much bigger. How that is going to work with public transit, that's not decided yet. So we're still with the tradition, with the previous Akershus and current Oslo region. So, and we are absolutely have rural areas as well as part of the mix. We have, of course, the city center, but we also have some very rural areas. Our geography currently is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 square kilometers, and it contains roughly 1.2 million inhabitants. And that includes everything from the densest city core in the capital of Oslo, of Norway, Oslo, and also some very rural areas, and even over towards the border towards Sweden, where there is a lot of woods, maybe a couple of elks, and maybe even the occasional wolf. Last year we had a total of 387 million boardings throughout the entire year. And that puts us at roughly 1 million boardings on a regular working day. Within our total network, we have of buses, trams, metro, and boats, we have about something slightly above 14,000 departures every day in the network as a whole. We also are currently in the situation where in the city center of Oslo, we actually have, in the motorized modes, we have more journeys done with public transit than done with cars. It's not more of public transit than on the total side, because the majority of the city center journeys are actually done by walking. If you look at the Ruter story, we started out in 2007, 2008. So we've been doing what we do for a little more than 10 years. And we started out with a target to see if we could make sure that all growth in transportation was managed through public transit, biking and walking. And for the inner city and the city of Oslo, it seems we've mainly managed to do that. Some of the rural areas, we haven't quite done it, but at the same time, we have actually grown a lot more than the car usage. And the growth totally in public transit is getting very close to having doubled over that time period. Years. We're between 70 and 90% growth, depending on if you look at the surrounding areas or if you look at the city. Of course, a lot of this has to do with the fact that the politicians have been willing to invest in the system. There has been done upgrades to the metro system, increasing reliability, increasing capacity, increasing the user experience and the comforts. There has been loads of investments also in increasing frequency, making it more available, more usable, the network as a whole, and that shows in the figures. The range, the modes, it's most definitely the buses are the majority of it. The second part the second largest part would then be the metro. And then we get the trains and the trams and boats at the end. Yeah, the red ones are the urban or city buses, and the green ones are the more suburban or rural routes. But altogether, they account for between 40 and 50% of the volume. Even when we have a metro system.
It's huge.
And our metro system actually transports more people in a year than the entire rail network in all of Norway as well. So the rail, even if we have rail as a key part of some of the major people flows in Oslo and the region around, and it also connects some of the surrounding areas very well, it still only accounts for I think it's 11, 12, 13% of our total volume of boardings. If you look at the physical geography, we actually have the ferry connection with the most people, with the most passengers in Norway, is between center of Oslo and what's called Nesodden, big ferries that goes from Akerbrygge. And it's basically because if you're going to drive that journey, it takes you more than an hour. If you can go on the boat for 25 minutes instead. And the whole thing is, if you're not doing the boat, you have to drive quite far south and then back up again, and you get into the rush hours and everything. So it's not a practical commute in any way. At the same time, the boat link then actually connects quite an attractive area for people to live, which also shows in the numbers of passengers that are there. We also have a couple of other boat links where, again, the route across the ocean and the water is the fastest and easiest one. Providing public transit in the city is, of course, an absolute necessity if you're going to have a car-free city. You still need to balance the need of mobility and the freedom of movement that people want. If this is going to be an attractive city in a competitive region, people need to be able to move around and needs to work well and be efficient. At the same time, you need to make sure that you make it sustainable. And that's where public transit and other lightweight modes such as bikes and walking becomes a key part of it. And from our perspective, what we provide as public transit in the city is really key and integral to be able to actually make it a car-free city, or as car-free as possible. And we do that in different ways. One of the key ways that we do for the inner city and for the city center is, of course, the metro. If you can move people underground instead of on the ground, you can actually use the city space for other things. So the metro is really a key component in moving people around in that way. At the same time, the city of Oslo is already to a very large extent a walking city. The biggest modal share in the inner city is walking. We also work closely with the biking system. We have done some experiments and we are working to do more to be a much more integrated part and basically be a part of the transportation network. And instead of seeing public transit as one thing and biking as another and other stuff as other stuff, we'd really like to just see a mobility network. And quite literally overnight, Oslo was flooded with scooters. And I think we had something like almost 10 different e-scooter operators over the summer. It started last year around March or so, and there hasn't been any regulation in Oslo for the first season of e-scooters. So it has basically been an open and very competitive market. What we can see from, if we look back at it now, you can have opinions, is that good or bad or whatever. New things are always a challenge. People aren't used to it, they don't know how to use it, we don't know how to fit it in with everything, and so forth, so on. We saw all of this coming late in 2018, but the market was moving so fast that we weren't able to do much at that time. We have since made an agreement with one of the e-scooter operators to see if we can figure out how can we work this together, how can this fit into stuff and so on. So that's sort of a more of a development and innovation process. But what we can see if we look back at what has happened is that, one, people are using it. And also all numbers from everywhere are showing that, okay, this actually fits well with the need of people. Not everybody, but some. And we can see very clearly that it has impacted the city bike system. And we can also even see that it has impacted the use of public transit in the city center. We think we have between 1 and 2% less boardings in the public transit due to e-scooters. Biking system is seeing somewhere between 15 and 30%, depending on the analysis, of reduction in usage that has no other obvious explanation than e-scooters. So the fact that e-scooters is most likely going to be a part of the mix somehow seems very, very clear. How then should it be regulated and how should it fit into everything? Ongoing discussions and different approaches in different cities and all of that. We're also experimenting with and looking into, and some of the good things about e-scooters, if people choose an e-scooter during the rush hours instead of getting on a full bus or a full tram, because they like it better and it's more convenient, well, to us that creates more space on the bus and tram at that point for another passenger, which basically increases the total system capacity. And also, currently e-scooters have no subsidies. So all transportation, from an economic perspective, all transportation that is done without subsidies, that gives more room for others and others. So, yeah. Sensibly done, I'm fairly sure that this could be become a good component and a good part of the network. We're also, of course, seeing that if you compare to bikes, most people grow up learning to ride a bike when they're fairly young. It's sort of part of growing up. It's something you use, you learn it, you have parents that can teach you. Nobody had parents that have taught them e-scooters when they were suddenly all over the city last summer. So that's brand new. Nobody knows really how to use it, what is smart, where should you ride. So where it's going to be if you look at it a couple of years ahead, it's going to be very interesting. And you're also seeing that there's developments on the scooters and the technology. You're getting three-wheelers, you're getting them with seats. All of a sudden they become, depending on the local regulations, they turn from being a bike to legally a bike to a scooter, which needs a plate and a type approval and a whole different regimes of a whole bunch of stuff going on in this space. But what we're seeing is that there is a group, at least grown males in 30-something are the biggest user group that we see. And we also see a couple of interesting patterns, like where we have holes in the public transit network is where you have the most e-scooter usage. But that's not really surprising because it's very similar to the city bike usage, which also fills out holes in the public transit network, which is a good thing. And we also see that there is a small peak in usage 10 to 15 minutes before every full hour, which is the getting too quickly to a meeting effect. So it absolutely fills some needs in some ways. If I can be 10 minutes longer in the office and then just do an e-scooter quickly to where I'm going to be with my meeting, that's minutes saved for me during a busy day. The regional buses is an integrated part of our system. That also means that we look at it as not necessarily just regional buses, because the train system also caters to parts of the region. And all of this being very closely integrated, and we actually travel on one ticket, we connect and piece these things together. But of course, rural areas are a very different market. You have less people, you have longer distances, and we do have challenges around that. Of course, us being one PTA for the entire area also means that different parts of, or different bus routes have different levels of subsidies. And there is no doubt that some of the big bus lines or where we have a lot of people that generates a lot of ticket income, parts of that actually goes to pay for buses in the regional area. What has been good is that we have been able to show growth also in the region, but also we're very much trying to be market driven in the sense that we try to work very closely with our customers to figure out where would they want to go, where are the needs, and where can we put money to get ridership. So that's sort of the approach. So we're going, you always have to balance it towards geographical coverage. And I think we have the same challenges there as everybody else. We are looking at more flexible solutions, more on-demand stuff. We have some older traditional on-demand services that almost nobody knows about. And I think we have been very good at building a public transit network that caters to a lot of the work and school journeys. We're not that good at more complicated journeys, such as if you drop off your kids in kindergarten and then go to work, or you stop and shop on the way home, where a car is an extremely good and flexible solution. Those journeys, and we can see this from the numbers, those are much more difficult. The journeys we're really good at are the ones where you're going to work or to school and you're going back home. And those fit nicely within that kind of structure. But that's also where we're trying to work and build more flexible solutions, and we're working on a whole bunch of different things in that area. One key thing in our context in Oslo is that we have currently a very, very strong sustainability agenda. The current city government is what we in Norway call a red-green coalition, meaning socialists and environmentalists. And the environmentalist party has been really growing, and they've been in charge of transportation and environment now for the last 4 years in the city, and they've just been re-elected. And they have also the same kind of coalition has now won the majority in the region around the city. So now it's the same. And they're pushing very hard for all kinds of sustainable solutions. One thing that has been really good about that is that we are now seriously electrifying everything. Buses are well underway. We are now rebuilding the boats, the big ones that you used to Nesseltangen. The first one is already there, the second one is being rebuilt to become electric, and the third one is en route. We just signed a new contract where the smaller boats that run with the islands will be electric from, I think it's 2021 or 2022. And we will be completely zero emission on the entire public transit network at the latest in 2020. Our approach, or the way we go into that, is how can we cater to more of the citizens' needs in a way that means that they don't have to own a car. And there is some evidence especially from car sharing, and from which has some history and also some research behind it, that shows that if you give up a car ownership, you have a tendency to a larger mode change than just replacing a car journey with a shared car or carpooling. So along those lines, we are working with a whole range of different experiments and innovations. If we start out with one that's fairly simple and close to some other values of the city, which is trying to be inclusive and cater to all different parts of the population, as in most of, at least Europe, the aging population or the older groups in the society are growing. And we're going to have more older people as part of society in the years ahead. So we're currently experimenting with a dedicated service targeting 67 and above pensioners. On demand, pick you up at the door, drop you off where you want, within a defined geography and so forth, so on. But basically that means that it's an extra hand when you get on, it's a bag put on your doorstep. It's on demand when you need it, not ordered the day before, but today. And basically the idea is to see how can we make it easier to live longer at home, which is also, it's good for the individual. It creates a better life quality, and it includes the older people more. They're not stuck at home because they don't get out. And so it's a better quality of life. But it's potentially also cheaper for the city, because if you're healthy longer and need less support, you're basically going to be a cheaper citizen on pure economic terms. So this we're running in 3 different parts of the city, and our primary users are 80 and above, and they absolutely love the service. Currently, it's still an expensive service to operate from a purely transportation perspective, but we are now trying to figure out how does this actually impact the health budget. Because if you have savings in health and a cost in transportation, well, you actually need to see those two together from a city perspective. So that's one thing. Another thing that we've been looking into, and that's sort of okay, if we can sort that out, well, then maybe there is somebody that doesn't need to go and drive these people around. And again, if we can get rid of car journeys, get people into a minibus, have them drive together, that sort of works on both on the mobility and transportation and the emissions and the energy consumption, and as well as the inclusiveness and catering to all groups in society. Different problem, and this is typically something that public transit doesn't design for this. We design for the rush hours, rush hour peak. Talk to anyone in public transit, what is the defining time of day? Sure. Rush hour peak. What's the biggest peak? That's what you design for. And that's not when the 80 plus want to go do their stuff during the day. That's not what you design for. And that means that your network doesn't necessarily cater to them in any way. Another challenge, at least in Norway, family logistics in the afternoon it's a whole thing in itself. And parents with 2 or 3 kids, where if the kids have 1 or 2 activities, potentially 1 every day, or maybe even 2 during an afternoon, that generates a lot of logistics. And as many other European countries, Norwegians like football. We might not be the best at exactly that, but it's one example. So we've been experimenting together with some football clubs to see what happened if we, instead of all the parents picking up their kids after soccer practice, what if we put all these kids into minibuses and drove them home instead? So instead of between 50 and 100 private cars, we can use 7 minibuses and drive the kids home. And we've been running some experiments around this for about 1.5 years. The kids love the service because to them it's a social arena. They can have fun and blah blah and whatnot. For the parents, it takes a logistics component out of their everyday work, and we even see a tendency that where the parents would take the car to work in the morning because they need the car on the way home to pick up the kids, all of a sudden they don't have to pick up the kids, which means that they can actually use public transit for their job journey and have our service deliver their kids home. That way we have eliminated not just 1 car journey, but 3. So this is also a service that we're looking into and seeing how, and also this is a type of transportation where, again, public transit traditionally, we don't design for it. If we are going to, and we start piecing together stuff like this, we're now working on another experiment as well, where we're looking at a fully, and this, when we do this together with, say, the football team, well, they know who's going to be there. We can plan for it. Actually, it's plannable. It's not a fully on-demand thing because they know who's going to be on practice. They know who's going home. We can scale it to be efficient volume-wise. So it's not that bad of a thing, actually, from an operational perspective as well. Another example that we're doing now is slightly different, trying to target sort of the same afternoon need, but now we're doing it a fully on demand, not requiring being signed up and having lists of people and stuff. Because the first experiments we did, that was on the age group between 6 and 10. Mm-hmm. And if your kids are between 6 and 10, as a parent, you want to know where they are. You want to be sure that either the coach takes care of your kids or somebody else takes care of your kids. So part of what we do in that service is that we have the list of names. Our drivers check everybody into the bus and check them out when we hand them over to the parents or when they're home. So we can always tell who do we have on the buses, where are they, all of that stuff. So we have control of the kids, which is necessary for the parents to trust that kind of service. But as I said, the other that we're doing now is an on-demand service. That's a fully on-demand thing. You don't have to sign up front and stuff like that. Still targeting an area where there is a lot of afternoon activity. So we might mainly think that we should have people moving into one big sports or activity facility and out again. And so that's fairly just started, so we don't quite know how that's going to work yet. But that's also something we're looking into. To us, both passenger information is really, really important, and one of our key strategies and drivers in that is digitalisation. And we have a very digital population. We have a very, very high penetration of smartphones, which makes a lot of stuff very easy for us. But at the same time, we then need to make sure that we actually can provide real-time information. So we have been changing stuff around with the buses and the systems on board. We are really pushing through something called IT for PT, which is a standardization, where instead of putting a real-time system on the bus, we contract that every second the bus operator should send us an updated GPS position for the bus. And we also now have real-time connections to all our new buses, so we can actually give real-time information on the screen in a bus, and we could actually sit down and type a message and send it real-time out there as well.